This video is brought to you by Brilliant. So I believe that the best mobile to desk setup experience, the ability to pull out a compact device other than a laptop, to plug into a monitor and turn into a workstation, lies somewhere in between those two devices, the iPad Pro and a Samsung phone supporting DeX. So let's check out both of those on-the-go devices and see how they stack up next to each other when plugged into a monitor, as well as what they're capable of and where they fall short. By the end of this video, we should have a clear picture of what it could be if we were to combine the best of both worlds. First things first. Proper monitor support only works on the Pro models of the iPad, 3rd gen or later on the 12.9-inch and all 11-inch models, as well as the 5th generation iPad Air. On the Galaxy side, pretty much all S and Note models 9 and up should be fine, including the Z Fold. Second, in order to use the iPad Pro or the Samsung Galaxy in a setup, you need to have a display that supports both of them. For example, the Apple Studio display works flawlessly on the iPad, as expected, but it does not work at all on the Samsung phone. The BenQ PT3200U, for example, wasn't able to power up the Galaxy phone as well. Rest assured, the majority of popular displays should be able to support both devices if we talk about HDMI or DisplayPort. However, the neat part here is running power and charging the device while using it. For that, a Thunderbolt monitor is the way to go, as all you have to worry about is plugging in a single USB-C cable and charge the device at the same time. I will list some of the monitors I've tested with both devices in the description below if you're interested. Note that both of those devices are picky when it comes to USB-C cables as well. So if you happen to try and connect them and you're not getting a picture, don't rush into conclusions. Try another cable first. By the way, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe because why not? Now that we have both devices working with an external monitor, the third thing to note here are the input devices. Thankfully, Apple has finally caught up with Samsung and now supports pretty much any input device. With that in mind, while running the tests, I used the MX Mini and Anywhere combo by Logitech, which is awesome, especially when switching between multiple devices. So once we're plugged in and ready to mouse and right off the bat, you can notice that the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra does not support 4K. Although it has the potential and power to do so, this is not an official feature yet. So we're stuck at 3088 by 1440. In all fairness, it's not bad at all. On this 32-inch monitor, things look very good, and there's no weird edge pixelization to worry about. Once you plug in the iPad Pro though, you can see the contrast in sharpness and even color. The iPad supports HDR and things look crazy vivid. In all fairness, for productivity purposes, both do great jobs, with the iPad being the visually better looking option. Once you start using both systems, you'll realize that they work like Mac and Windows in terms of shortcuts. On the iPad you have Command plus, while on the Samsung you have Control plus C, for example. Inverted or natural scrolling is also different. Double tapping on an app or icon is typical desktop behavior on the Galaxy device, while the iPad treats pressing on something with the mouse like tapping. If I were to click on the Settings app on the iPad, for example, it opens right away. If I were to click on Settings on the S23 Ultra, I just select it. In terms of interface, both devices provide very good experience. The main menu bar or dock is at the bottom, where on the Galaxy devices, things shine, showing you clearly visualized active app windows. Just like on the big OSs, on the Galaxy phone you have neat features like a notification pane and calendar when you click on the clock. The iPad for the most part exists with just the dock. The big differentiator between the two is jumping back and forth between the active windows. When it comes to active management support on the iPad, things are very Mac OS-like, very basic. You have Command Tab, and you can browse and scroll through the active windows or apps at the moment, but you don't have a preview or anything else. That's just the only thing that you can do. On DeX, however, things are a lot more interesting because you can still use the option to move between the apps, but you also have a preview. Same goes for closing the other apps. You can just come over here and just hit the X and close them, or you can just close all of them, which is something that I appreciate a lot. Boom. Nice. No matter the case, slapping a nice wallpaper to call it home is the first step for me. The rest requires little getting used to. When drawing wallpapers, by the way, I love to focus on captivating patterns. So you can imagine why Brilliant.org immediately piqued my curiosity with their course called Beautiful Geometry. Tiling tessellations, polyaminas, we see these things all the time in tapestry, mosaics, origami, chessboards. But now I not only get to admire them, but also interpret them and create them. Turns out even punching a hole in a folded piece of paper is easier with science. Brilliant's courses are always hands-on, letting you try things yourself and helping you visualize them. It feels like a fun game, but you actually walk away with new problem-solving skills, including better intuition and analytical thinking. And Brilliant lets you do that one lesson at a time, anytime or anywhere you can. It's a great way to learn math and science and appreciate the beauty of it. To try Brilliant for free for full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/ThisIsE or click on the first link in the description below. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Okay, so when we start using both of those systems, what might confuse you here is the difference in Windows behavior, where the Samsung treats DeX more like a desktop platform where you have proper window management and support. The iPad uses Stage Manager to handle all the window positioning and scaling. For example, on the iPad, when I have a window opened, there's no clear management of it. The 3 dots for resizing, minimizing, and quitting are gone, and all I can see are new 3 dots in the middle of every window. Very cumbersome. I don't have free window control on the iPad either. iPad OS uses some sort of grid snapping which predetermines where my window snaps in size, which is a bit confusing. On the Galaxy phone, I have full control over the window and then some. I can even change its opacity or pin it on the top. The biggest difference between both operating system behaviors are when it comes to the desktop itself. While DeX treats the desktop as any other desktop where you can place app icons, folders, or files, iPad OS has no desktop at all. The external monitor is just an empty void with a sole purpose of temporarily storing windows. This is such a missed opportunity and an absolute loss of potential. If you want to know more about my struggles with the iPad in a desk setup, you can watch my full iPad in a desk setup guide video at the end of this one. If I have to pick a clear winner here, it will be the Samsung device hands down. It's the closest thing to Windows and it has clear support for desktop, window management and behavior and so much more. Keeping the device closed, or the equivalent of having your laptop in a clamshell mode, inactive and to the side, works great on the Galaxy. The iPad on the other side needs to always stay on. If you attempt to close it, it shuts off, essentially not allowing you to use your monitor as a giant iPad. You can't really flip it over and shove it to the side because it's a vital component for the entire setup. With that in mind, having the iPad in front of you below the monitor in most cases is best, as you can take advantage of Face ID whenever you need to authenticate something. You can of course do that on the S23 Ultra with fingerprint, yet it's a lot easier and quicker on the iPad. The use cases of both physical devices while they're plugged in are very different. The Galaxy phone remains and acts as a phone while DeX is running, while the iPad stays as the primary or secondary display in your setup. Actually, primary. Running meetings on the iPad is a lot more natural, although you can't take advantage of the monitor's built-in camera if there's such. You can, however, fire up and use the monitor's speakers. Overall, the iPad is more comfortable than the Ultra, since you need to have a dedicated stand for the phone. It's difficult to just lean it somewhere and keep it at the ideal position for a meeting. One ace up the Android sleeve is using the phone as a touchpad. Now, I wouldn't use it as a primary choice, but I can see how it can come in handy for some situation, especially if you pull up DeX on a TV, for example. When it comes to app support, things are again very different, where in the world of Apple, everything is much more polished. Unlike Android, many iOS apps have dedicated app OS alternatives, which means that you can expect purpose-built and not resized apps on the iPad. On Android's side, you have to quit and reopen apps that are already loaded in order to experience them in DeX, while on the iPad they just remain intact. Where the Android flexes when it comes to window management and overall desktop experience, the iPad compensates with app quality. Unfortunately, that makes both devices equally inadequate in many situations. One not being able to work and multitask properly, while the other one allowing you to multitask with baby versions of certain apps. In terms of overall performance, the iPad also takes the lead because it's incredibly smooth and effortless to use. I ran all the tests with my M2 iPad Pro and there was zero hesitation, which I'm sure would be the case with the previous generation M1. Everything is buttery smooth, while on the S23 Ultra, you can witness slowdowns at some point. There would be keyboard input delays when I write, and things would generally slow down, like pulling up active app window. I don't think this is a hardware-related issue, however. I believe it's more of a software optimization case. These are in fact all the main shortcomings of both devices. The iPad has all the power one might require alongside the most premium app experience, yet handles everything like a toddler having a tantrum. The Galaxy, on the other side, enters the room dressed in a suit and tie like a proper businessman, carrying a suitcase full of kids' scribbles. I see the iPad more like a primary device plugged into a monitor extension, while the Samsung is a phone that turns into a wannabe workstation. You use the iPad with a monitor to enjoy a larger canvas, read, edit, and work, knowing that the actual job gets done on the tablet itself. On the other hand, the Samsung turns into a surprisingly capable, simple task handler, especially when you know that everything you see on this 32-inch monitor comes from the phone in your pocket. The ideal mix between the two will be the iPad power and app support mixed with the desktop approach of DeX, proper window and multitasking management. If Apple were to ditch Stage Manager and just give us the traffic light buttons, even with the snapping nonsense, things would be miles better. On the other hand, if Samsung was to focus and invest in DeX, they might end up creating a desktop rival worth talking non-stop about. What are your thoughts? Which device is better in a desk setup? Let me know in the comments and make sure you give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is Z, over and out.